and welcome. May I say, saving the best for last, perhaps? We are the last of the series, but it will be live, on demand rather, for days to come. We're here, panel discussion, redefining the funnel. Welcome, and the conversation is really about what you need to know to take back with you to the office. Well, we work from home now, so taking back to your working space, because whether it's growth loops, customer funnels, whatever, marketers rely on frameworks, approaches to create critical moments in their app, develop marketing to drive positive results. It's about forming those habits, redefining those funnels. There's challenges to defining and filling the funnel in the first place. There's risks involved. There's money involved. It's an issue for the entire marketing ecosystem. So I'm pleased that our panel also reflects this market mix as well. So we have a lively panel. So if you think this is just going to be talking heads, don't. We have Georgina Green, who I've learned over the last few days and through prep is going to give us some amazing insights. Georgina is CEO and founder of GMT Hub, a marketing agency focused on connecting apps with the right traffic sources. She has nearly a decade of experience, and I can say absolutely from experience, a no BS personality, singular focus on what it takes to grow profits, which is what this audience really needs to know about, and has a client list that reads like a who's who, shopping apps, including Rappi, Shopee. She'll also update us on some key learnings from Alibaba, so stick around for that. We also have Ruth Guthoff-Recknagel, head of product, Dr. Care Anywhere. And that's interesting because this is an app that is very much focused on the funnel. We're going to hear from her because it allows people to manage their loved ones and their own health effortlessly, quickly, get face-to-face appointments with doctors anytime, anywhere. And she has a long and impressive track record as well, 20 years in innovative digital and on-demand businesses, loves running high-performing teams. I love that as well, taking digital products to market. And hey, we love having you here today, Ruth. So welcome. Absolutely. And Oliver, now we're getting to an all-star cast here. Noted growth hacker, marketer, mobile marketing guru, many times on Pocket Gamer. You can see him there. I just finished a couple of panels talking a lot, sharing a lot, which I think is really important because he's helped app companies ranging from indies to market giants like Rovio, Wargaming, and more than 20 years in marketing and advertising. May I say a veteran, Oliver? You've marketed hundreds of casual, core, and MMO games in the online mobile space. Next to that, when you have free time, whenever that might be, you manage target gamers, of course. And then next to that, you're also Chief Commercial Officer at Lockwood Publishing, the creator of the virtual 3D world game Abacan Life. So again, a lot of experience, a lot that you're bringing here. So I'm glad to have you all here because we're talking about a topic where you need to know what you're doing, you need to know what you're talking about, and that is redefining the funnel. But let's start a little bit just with understanding where everyone is right now, because of course we have global events impacting marketing, impacting you personally, your business personally. What are you seeing? Maybe we'll start with you, Ruth, because you have the app of the moment.
Yes, so I think the biggest challenge for us was while we were already so think of it a virtual GP session and a setting, and we've built also a diagnostic pathway, and we didn't see COVID coming, and suddenly we have everything is remote, and everybody wants to have a virtual GP consultation because you can't go to the doctor anymore. So I think growth has been crazy. Impact on the company has been crazy. Impact on the team has been crazy because suddenly everybody is remote, and you're trying to help the people best. And I think this is also what put a big emphasis on my work. Suddenly it's about helping people even more. It's people who need to see a doctor, and we can allow them to see a doctor within 20 minutes, which is just amazing.
And we'll talk about the impact for your app shortly because, of course, a run on that. Oliver, I'll get to you because it's very much focused on what's changed. In gaming, a lot has changed. Been writing about a lot of that explosive growth, but you personally, you at your company, what's different?
A lot of it has changed. For us, I mean, we've also seen quite an increase in initially installs. People basically being now bored at home and looking for entertainment products. But beyond that, we've also seen like a huge influx of time spent in the application. Our virtual world is something between a game and a social network. So people were spending already an awful lot of time in there, chatting with others, meeting new people. But now they have even more time. So then this is a great playground for them. I would say that, you know, overall, the industry, the big beneficiaries of this kind of time are definitely those that have more of a social component in their games. Not like the snack games. I mean, they did get some additional installs, like the hyper casual type of games. But you know, if you're planning to play 5 minutes, then you know, if you have hours to kill, then that might not be the best way to kill that time, right? So for us, it's been really with the circumstances as a product, it's definitely been.
Oops.
Okay. Well, we'll get to. He'll be coming back.
Growth and their time for us, like a weekday is like a weekend. Sorry. For us, like a weekday is like a weekend, and the weekend is like holidays in terms of people and time spent. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that, of course, has impact. I mean, a lot of people told me at the very start, okay, we're just going to hunker down. We're going to wait for better times. That probably impacted spend on UA. But Georgina, you're focused on events that people can cash in on, not just filling the funnel, but keeping it profitable and long-term. So what changed for you? I'm just curious, did you see like a run on saying, okay, we need to focus on more valuable things, or what changed?
Well, I mean, let's start off with the initial question, which is more interesting, which is personally,
let's hear about
personally, I have found that I am prone to alcoholism, which is definitely the case during a pandemic. Now, moving towards the business side of it, obviously, sorry, I didn't say that's not live or anything, don't worry.
Don't worry about it.
On the business side of it, I've actually seen the space for creativity and innovation. This is what I strive for. I love. I mean, this is the most fucked up, sorry, I can't say it any other way, social experiment that I think we will ever experience. So we can either kind of lie down and say, oh shit, what are we going to do? Or we can say, you know what, this is a time we really need to start making some moves. And I'm actually personally, obviously not excited over pandemic, obviously, God forbid, but I am very excited to see where this is actually going to lead us personally and professionally. Less alcohol-wise, obviously.
May I say I would drink to that, Georgina?
Absolutely.
Okay, so on that note, we understand where everyone here is coming from. We do have a poll, and Casey Rock, our MC, our the person who put this all together in the first place, going to help me out, perhaps, I hope. You're going to see a poll. What do you do? What is your focus? Just to get an understanding, because we want to match your needs. You know, we want to teach you, help you out here. Are you an app marketer? Are you an app developer? Are you in UA? Or are you in engineering? So that just gives us an overview. I'll leave that open for a while, and we'll get into the next question while people are filling that in. And you can fill in multiple things. If you have multiple hats in these times because your team is toast, you know, hey, fill it out. Do what you need to do. So we talked about what happened with you personally. It shapes, you know, the many shapes of the funnel. I'm reading, okay, the funnel sucks, the funnel is gone, the funnel is broken, everything is obliterated, linear is gone. Lots of different takes on this. So before we know how to redefine or redevelop or rebuild something, we have to know what is it we have. So again, I'll start with you, Ruth, because you have the most interesting funnel. I have actually never seen what a fat funnel would be. So what is a fat funnel? What are you actually dealing with? And what are you marketing focused on here?
I think so. I'm calling out fat funnel because before it was thin, and suddenly it's fat. And while at the beginning we also had to look in, we always were focused on acquisition. And even though we're B2B2C, it was always how do we activate our patients? How do we get them through the funnel? But while now we see the funnel is fat at the beginning, activation rates is high, and also it keeps going. So it's not that shaped anymore. It's almost parallel, which is quite crazy and also scary at the same time. On the other hand, that means that we can help a lot of people. So I think the funnel, so when we initially talked about this discussion, it was a very, very different discussion, because it would have been all about acquisition and activation, versus now it's about there's so many coming. How can we actually grow our platform to make sure that we can support even more people? So fat funnel for us.
Okay, fat funnel. Georgina, you're seeing something very different, and you're also seeing it from a different perspective. What can you share? Because in your case, some verticals are very, very relevant and have maybe an intact funnel, and others don't. What can you share?
Okay, so from user acquisition perspective, I have to say we are now in a time of grab the opportunity, which means LTV, long-term value users, and all of this kind of gets a little bit, in my personal opinion, goes out the window. We're talking every business needs to focus on cash flow now. So I am always encouraging every app that I work with and that I represent to work on that specific payable event, or that specific event that defines their product, and let's target that and only pay for that event. These are gone with the days, in my personal opinion, of paying on CPM and CPC. It's a waste of fucking money, I'll tell you. Pay only when you get paid. It makes perfect sense. And I know that sometimes quality can go a little bit distorted on that level. However, the quantities will make up for the quality. So on my personal opinion, it's now is the time for payable events, CPA, stop with the CPI, stop with the CPM, stop with the CPC.
Boy, those are fighting words for you, Oliver.
Well, I try to be very neutral here. I mean, Georgina can have the fight with Facebook and Google. I'm not going to jump in.
Oliver, we can do it together. Come on, we've both got nice faces. Come on.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're absolutely right. Cash flow is obviously the big thing. Given that we are running full on into like a big, deep recession, for any business in the app world, I mean, we're in a way, to a degree, lucky, because we're working in like technology, that we're not as affected, but our customers are definitely affected, and that has an impact on the value that they may also bring. So I think Georgina is absolutely right to say like cash flow is the big thing. However, coming like from a free-to-play space, LTV has an important factor there. It's not that we make our money on day zero. I mean, we're not a shopping app where basically, I can target the person that basically, as a marketer, I can target the person that wants to make the purchase now. Then I'll make the buck immediately. In free-to-play, you always have to kind of look at LTVs and these kind of things. It's just the nature of a business. What we've done, though, is we've kind of definitely looked at, let's not be, all in, spend as much as we can. Yes, I think the time is almost over, because prices are starting to ramp up again, I see. But it was, we need to be careful. We don't know what the LTV of these users is going to be. Let's rather shorten that window of return, because, as Georgina said, cash flow definitely matters in times like this.
So I did want to read the results of the poll, or rather ask Casey Rock to read them. I'm not, because I can't actually see the results of the poll. We did close them to find out where we are.
Yeah.
What do we got?
So app marketer was 57%, app developer 29%, UA 7%, and engineering 7%.
Okay, so everyone's marketing. Everyone wants to know where the buck is, Georgina. So you're in good company here. I want to get an understanding of again where the value is. We're talking about payable events. We will get to that in a moment, but a lot of thinking here is about, okay, I have to do something new and amazing and different. I need a new feature because I want to get new people into the funnel and I want to keep them there. But I'm not quite sure if that's the way it needs to go. And I'd love to hear, maybe we'll start off with you, Oliver. I mean, is this a good time to look at new features? Do we need to look at new features, or just sort of shift attention back to existing value in your app?
I think that always depends on where you are with your app. At the end of the day, I do generally believe if your app is out there already, then you should always look at like, okay, what is the core value that my product is? What is my product about? What is that kind of USP? What is the special thing about it? In games, that is sometimes a little bit trickier because there are a lot of like clones of other people's ideas. But in general, you should always try to kind of really figure that out and rather focus on that and make sure that you get the people that really love that core thing, what you're actually providing there. So, features sometimes can distract from that. If your app is not exactly that great, then I see a lot of product people that say, oh, but maybe we add this and maybe we add that, and then everything will be good. I don't know how you see that, Ruth.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that, Ruth, because of all of us, right? I mean, your app is going to change in demand constantly. This is the time of hyper change for you. I mean, forget the funnel because you're on the ground running.
So I think for us is to keep the funnel fat. And by doing so, I'm using a Black Forest cake here, right? So right now we have 2 layers of the cake, and what we need to do is all the people that we have in there, because the goal is to keep you or enabling you to manage your health, especially it's appropriately, which is really, really important. And everybody will be keeping going to a doctor online if it is more convenient. So I'm working right now on a Black Forest cake. And so the first layer was the virtual GP, the second layer is the diagnostics, and then we need to put more layers into this cake to make sure that you have all the data in one place and we have all the different features to help you improve your health. So one of the things we're working on right now, nobody will be surprised, is mental health, because we can see that there's a shift from before it used to be asthma and respiratory diseases, and now it's about anxiety and depression. So clearly one of the next layers in our Black Forest cake to get engagement and retention is then mental health. So for us, it's an opportunity to bring in appropriate new layers in that Black Forest cake to keep that funnel fat and to keep retention up. We've seen that retention rate was already in the 30 and 40s, and right now it's a little bit less because we had so many new ones coming in. So we need to get that Black Forest cake going. So we get even fatter, so to say.
That's a great problem, though, guys. I'd love that problem.
I was just going to say that her talk about the Black Forest cake, other than the fact that it's making us possibly hungry at this time of the day, it's great news for you, because if I'm layering in more features, I'm layering in more potentially payable events. So what does that? So how would you assist me? Would I be layering these features? Would I have to give you something so you understand? Because I'm going to have even more events to be focusing on. Maybe even having to balance, Georgina, between the ones that are really going to pay well, the ones that are really sort of critical, and others. What would you say here?
Look, you're going to have many payable events. I hope, from my mouth to God's ears in your app. I hope you've got many, many payable events. Now, obviously, we've got to define, which payable events are more valuable than others. We also have to take into consideration the product of Ruth and Oliver, who have the expertise in product, and say, well, Georgina, hold back, stop trying to get me too much money. I also need to have a little bit for the future. I need to, I don't want to just have someone pay and then go, so we do also obviously have to take into consideration the retention rate, and we take that, it depends on the pixels that are placed. If you've implanted an SDK and you place pixels onto day 1 retention rate, day 7, day 30, as well as the payable events, all of these come into play with us able to kind of optimize towards your benefit. However, we are not in a normal civilization at the moment, if we can call this civilization at all. I mean, it's more like The Walking Dead when it comes to business, okay? Let's not, don't take that too literally. Please, anyway. So, we do also really have to now focus on, there's so many people going out of work, and the reason why a lot of companies, in my personal opinion, are going out of work is because they're still trying to stay with the same business model of, we're going to create something incredible. And I'm, 30 years old, and I love creativity. However, we need to pay the bills, we need to pay our taxes, we need to pay our salaries. So I always ask my customers at the moment, payable event, tell me which ones are the most relevant, tell me what you also want, where the pixels are placed, where I'm also able to optimize so that we can try and also work with the long-term growth. However, we have to focus on the now.
I couldn't agree with you more. And that's where I'd like to bring it back to Ruth and Oliver, because it's about identifying those. And I've read a lot about this. How do you do it? You start, do you start a spreadsheet? Do you do an overview? Do you map it out? Does it go to, what happens? And different models for different apps, obviously, Oliver, that's very clear. Probably best to keep it simple. I'll start with you, Oliver. How do you find the critical events, the ones that you're going to, if you were going to work with Georgina, send her way?
Well, the first one, that's a very simple one, is obviously in a free-to-play environment, if somebody starts spending money, right? Mm-hmm. But as we all know, in free-to-play at least, only a certain percentage, actually a small percentage of people spend money. So there may be other valuable events, maybe not payable or payable to some degree, right? Mm-hmm. I think what is important is when you kind of develop your app and when you kind of start looking at like, okay, what is the core service? What is the core thing that I want to actually provide? Is to figure out like what is this critical moment in the user path where they come from exploration into something that is like an aha moment where they have the option to kind of get into something that is a bit more of a habit, right? They need to kind of see, okay, this is really what I'm getting out of this. I don't know what that is in like I'm sure Ruth has also these moments in the app where she says like, okay, if a user kind of does this X times, then we got them, right? They see the user sees the value. And the same counts also for entertainment. For our app, for example, a virtual world, it's when, we track when people kind of make connections with each other, like every social network would do, right? Mm-hmm. So we basically measure the amount of those social connections. And when they reach a certain amount, in our case, we know after somebody reaches 4 kind of friend relationships, that's like a payable event, as Georgina calls them, because we know this user is going to be valuable, even if they never spend $1. They are valuable because they obviously in a social network, provide content in terms of communicating with others, etc.
Yeah, their presence is going to make it sticky, in other words, and that's going to be good for you in the long run.
Yeah, exactly. So those aha moments, those are, for me at least, those are the valuable events. And every app is obviously different, but you have to really find them. Yeah.
Ruth, how do you go about that? Because if you think about it, not only are you adding more layers, but I'm imagining that those layers are getting in different types of engaged. That's good news for you, engaged audiences, or keeping them engaged. But then mapping that out, these critical moments, they're shifting. How do you approach that?
So we use a tube map. So we have our different actions within in the app we have laid out as a tube map, and the tube map has right now two lanes. One is the virtual GP and one is the diagnostics. And then within that tube map, we have right now a North Star, because we're working with OKRs, and like so many people do, towards a North Star. And that North Star is this aha moment of having had a GP consultation, because we're lucky enough that we have an NPS of higher than 80, because our GPs really are doing a great job in the 20-minute consultation to not only help you, but also put you at ease and then solve your health problem. So for us right now, that is the aha moment, and we need to just make sure that that we're, by using the different layers of the Black Forest cake, that they get back to this. But so far, this looks really good and really promising, and it's going to get even more. I think for us, it's even more that this tube map is right now, the cards in the tube maps are getting so big because we increased now to 18,000 consultations per month. And a few months back, we were much, much lower. So it's almost like the tube is busting. So that we need to do lots of around platforms right now, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
It's revolutionary, totally revolutionary, Ruth, what's going on with your industry. I mean, this is just, it's like the timing is perfect. Like, I mean, I'm sorry, excuse me.
No. You can get equally excited, Georgina, because my question was to you about Alibaba, because that's something I can't wait to hear. You brought it up that you had something to share, because that's a different approach. You're looking at results, you're looking at regions, you're looking at a lot of different aspects, as you try to map it out with your client. So I'd like to hear about that.
Well, Alibaba is a case study. It's one of many beautiful case studies that we have, but Alibaba is in particular very fascinating because what's happening is we were doing very good revenues, between 100, 150,000 revenue, of sales for the Alibaba month. And then all of a sudden the pandemic hits. And then we see last month, I just updated it today, which was totally fascinating, $683,000 worth of sales. Wow. And I am sitting here like, hello, I'm fucking awesome. So, but there is obviously a pandemic going on, which is obviously, changing the situation. So we started to kind of, a couple of months back, once the pandemic started to kind of locking down countries, what we started to do is targeting countries that was locking down. Because as Oliver very clearly said, people have more time now, they're more on their phones. And so what we're doing as well is taking that data of the statistical data of the pandemic and targeting those countries where when there's a lockdown, we target very aggressively. Yes, they will not complete the sale for a longer period of time. However, we went from, like I said, around $100,000 to $150,000 worth of sales to $680,000 really in a process of 1 month with a lot of optimization. That being said, we had a lot of fuck-ups as well. We had a lot of, excuse my French, I wouldn't insult the French. We had a lot of clients back out, like Rappi. Rappi was one of our biggest clients. We loved Rappi, we worked with them for many years, and now they just didn't need us because, how about it, everyone needs their food delivery service. They don't need, UA and marketers. No, they're not. They're just like, well, guys, we're good, cool, peace, see you later. And this was not obviously the most happiest of my moments. This was a bottle of, I think it was Shabazz later. I said to myself, no, but there's a lot of opportunity here. So with Alibaba, then we saw the opportunity. We said, okay, we have to start refocusing. We have to go to different verticals. We have to see where the opportunity is. With what Ruth is doing, with the medical apps that are coming out, with Oliver, with social, 100%. What we're seeing also, even now, just as a little tip to any marketers out there, go for the travel apps because people are opening up. And do you know how many? Don't tell anyone, but do you know how many apps that we are now bringing in? And we are seeing explosions. Why? It makes perfect sense because people haven't been able to leave their houses. So they're booking. So take the opportunity. So this is where it gets really interesting.
I get it. I get absolutely. Disneyland opening up in the States, in July. It's gonna absolutely other travel apps, other types of travel, camping, others. Yeah. So everything is changing, guys, right? I'd like to understand something about those goals because the whole idea of the funnel is to somehow optimize and extend LTV and get value through there. But, just a devil's advocate question out here, long-term value at a time when everything is either today or tomorrow or yesterday. And some people, I think it was Sir Martin Sorrell said long-term thinking is out the window, is passé. So how relevant is that in these times? How relevant is it to get people to that point? Maybe start with you, Oliver. I
still believe in the long term. Okay. In a long-term view, I mean there are a lot of, even if you kind of try to kind of look at shorter periods of returns of advertising or these kind of things, that doesn't mean that you completely lose sight on long-term view. We've had players come in 5 years ago and they're still there, and the same counts for many successful apps that they keep players or users in for a very long time. And that's not going to go away. And especially if there is like a social component, a community around it, etc., people will stick with that. So I still feel there is value also in the longer term. On some things, sure, short term is what matters. Maybe short term experiences or these kind of things. But yeah, I think the long term view is not completely away.
So Ruth, for you, it's very much long term, but it's also thinking about those journeys, making your app habit forming. What matters for you? I mean, is it relevant to think long term, or is it thinking about smaller, shorter, more compressed customer journeys and more compressed value loops, growth loops rather?
I was just thinking, so because when explaining our next stages, I'm using a health journey. So from childhood to adult to retirement. And so certain services we have are focusing on everything. Certain only start with adulthood. And I think for me, it's to give the opportunity to have this underlying base of data along your journey, because that journey, while you might be already an adult, for your child, it starts with childhood. So I'm just seeing how my Black Forest cake needs extending and extending and extending, because the earlier we can get you in the funnel and the earlier we can prove to you that we can help you to manage your health, we can help you longer. And it might be different things at different time, but I think for me it's important that we think lifetime, we think health journey for the entirety of your life, because either you're sick and we can help you, or we can actually help to prevent, to keep you happy and healthy. So LTV is super important.
Okay,
so can I say something there, Peggy?
Yes, certainly.
Because I think, for us, and that might be a little bit different to like an app like a healthcare app. For us, it's really, and I think that counts for many, many entertainment apps. It is really like the first day, the first session, the first 10 minutes, they actually define if a user is going to stick with this or not, right? So we put an awful lot of focus on like, okay, what is that early experience? What can we push somebody towards kind of making, in our case, those relationships with other players, right? But not like in a very direct way, because then it feels like you're just pushing them to do something that they're not really up for. So we're kind of really experimenting with that very, very early experience to kind of make sure, because we know that that's when they make their decisions. Is this something that they're going to open the next day? Is this something they're going to open in 2 days or something? And I think that's something that we at least look at much more than like, okay, are we going to increase like our conversion rate for like the whales or whatever? That's kind of also interesting, but it's really much more about like, how do we make sure that they really understand what this is about and understand the value that we can actually offer?
I like that.
There's something about the user here from downstairs, because the children right now, they call each other via Facebook, by FaceTime or something else, to actually then meet in a game. So they're creating this network. Everybody's trying to be part of it because they can't meet right now and play. So it totally makes sense to make these connections early to all go and have some fun together.
Absolutely, the upside from a downside, and we've had a great, I have to say, no holds barred discussion at the end of the day. That's the great thing when you're the last one. You can say whatever you want, and we have been being that honest. You in particular, Georgina, Ruth, you so helpful. I'd like to see in our last poll, have we changed some minds out there? So we're going to pull up our final poll. What is your current strategic priority? And it's like 1, cash now. I want to conserve cash flow and cut UA because, hey, we're in a pandemic. 2, you've been convinced by Georgina, payable events. That's where it's at. I'm identifying critical events in my app and I'm going to cash in. 3, product funnel. We didn't get to that too much, but it's all about, fine-tuning your product to attract users, align that with marketing. Or 4, LTV. I stick to my metrics. I focus on acquiring users who will stick around, what counts. And you can choose more than one if you want, if you're split. I just like to understand where your mindset is right now. So we'll leave that up there for you for a while. You can do it in your polls. You can see that in chat. And while they're doing that and considering that, because that is a big question, I get to another question here. It's about looking at, amongst other things, wanted to understand, some touch points, or rather, I'll take a step back because I really think it's important also to look at risk. We've been talking about opportunity. You talked about opportunity and travel, Georgina, but you get these users and a couple of months down the line, it might be very, very different. So I'd like to understand what you're telling Georgina, what you're telling your clients, about risk and opportunity here, because again, even with your example of the travel apps, it's opening up now, but maybe later on it's just, so what, no big deal. Things change. What do you tell them? How to manage that risk, or how to consider that risk?
Without risk, you don't get rewards. It's not a joke of a saying, okay, I'm going to steal it off a very wiser, much wiser person than me. We have to take the opportunities now. You're talking about long-term value. I agree, we do. As a product owner, this is the most important part, because you're creative. This is your babies. However, you're not going to get to long-term value or users unless you get your money in now. So what we have to do is, like Oliver very, very wisely said, in the first, 10 seconds, I think you mentioned, you can already see somewhat of, that's where you grip the client. That's where you already grip the customer. And base your work on that. And instead of building new creations, work on the creations you have, make sure they are paying for and bringing in the cash flow needed. And let's see this new, exciting, scary world that's about to come. And, we're going to have to adjust and just get a bit excited about it. It's going to be okay, guys, but we have to adjust.
I'm just thinking about the risk and the rewards. The reward of our poll is that all of the above, it seems. Casey, what can you read about our poll? Did you close it? Can you read those results? Has the poll been closed?
Yeah.
Sorry,
it has
can you hear
indeed.
me?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Sorry about that. I was on mute.
Not a problem.
So we had about, it's an even split between all of them. Cash now, payable events, product funnel, LTV are all 25%.
Great, so it was a good fight. Great, guys, well done.
Great fight. We're still fighting. We're still going to battle it here out. I know that there's probably some questions in the queue. We're coming up to the end.
Yeah.
I would love to continue, but I will ask, because you'll see it better than I can, Casey. Questions in queue. Do we have any to answer currently?
So we don't have any at the moment. We probably have time for one. We only have about 3 minutes left of this session.
Exactly.
If anyone does have a quick question, please pop it into the Q&A right now. Your time is running out.
Absolutely. And you can see we are geared up and still ready to fight. Still ready to fight it out. Well, we'll wait and see if we have some questions.
Screw that. I'm going to ask a question, and no one else is going to take the opportunity. Oliver and Ruth, when I first spoke to you, you were very product orientated and very about the fun and the flow. Have I managed personally to shift your mindsets a little bit? Because I know you guys have actually shaped mine a little bit better too.
That's a good one. Okay, I'll go with that. Ruth, has she changed your mind?
Okay.
Or Oliver? No, Oliver, you're the hardest one to convince. What do you think now?
So for me, I think, as I try to express, I think, Georgina may call it payable event. I think, for me, it's more the valuable event. So it's very close to it. I do feel like, So, and I would kind of try to kind of keep it a bit wider. Let's put it that way. But it's definitely a very important point.
But what was the result? That was the point. What was the result?
Well,
yay or nay will suffice as well.
What do you mean? No, so I think it's definitely worth kind of looking much more into that and kind of looking at also strategies. Yeah. Right now, we do very basic things, much more around like the purchase event itself. But as we discussed, there are probably a bit more payable events or valuable events than just the purchase event. And that is definitely something that, I think is definitely worth exploring much more for many people.
Okay, Ruth, you're the next one. Did it change your mind or widen your horizons thinking about that layer that you're building? Can she help you add to that cake?
Not at the moment, because right now we're struggling to just keep up and make sure that our funnel stays flat. But I think it's the next step, because right now we're still B2B2C. If we get into a position where we're actually ready to go B2C, then I'll definitely contact her.
Well, there you go, Georgina.
I'm sorry to interrupt all of you. We do only have about 30 seconds, and I do want to make sure this session gets a proper close. So I just wanted to thank you all for speaking. It was wonderful having you. And to our audience, I would say our expo area rather, and our chat rooms should be open after hours. So please go check them out. give our sponsors some love. Thank you so much to everyone who made this happen and made this a success. And see you next virtual event, I hope.
Yes,
Fantastic.
absolutely.